Hello, everyone. I am so excited to have Sherwood Neiss on the, plug into Devin episode here. Uh, Sherwood is one of the world experts on crowdfunding, equity crowdfunding. He is one of the partners at Crowdfund Capital Advisors. He is like a really big deal. So anyway, stick around. You don't want to miss this episode. Woodie, welcome to the show.
Devin, it is great to be here with you.
Thank you so much for coming back. It's great to connect with you again. You were there in for the signing ceremony at the Obama White House when the Jobs Act was passed in 2012. And really, the implementation of that law still kind of goes on today. The SEC is right in the middle of making changes to that law right now as we speak. It's really cool, the legacy that your work created. But what do you want to talk about today?
Oh, I want to talk about crowdfunding, and I want to talk about the great things that have happened with it. But I want to talk about the failures in the current PPP program and the problems that we're having on Main Street America, and how if we carve out $62 billion, which might seem a lot, but when you're talking about trillions of dollars our government's throwing around right now, it's really a drop in the bucket, and how we can use that as a co-investment fund to match dollar for dollar with crowdfunding investments on these platforms all around the country.
This really does sound so incredibly intriguing to kind of create some leverage for the private sector. The private sector is a little tapped out right now for ordinary investors especially. So tell us, how would this work?
So the principles of crowdfunding are simple. You get a group of people engaged behind a business. You become investors in that business. But what that means is these investors have a vested interest in the outcome of that business. So these campaigns have been going on for 4 years now. Over 1,400 companies have been funded by over $370 million. The system's working. There's been zero fraud. So what we're saying is we've got hundreds of thousands of these community businesses that have furloughed employees. Let's let them go to their customers, their fans, their family, and say, help us get back on our feet. If you can, and it all depends on how much money they need, but let's use this as an example. Let's say they want to crowdfund $125,000 from their community. If they hit that goal, then the government would come in with $125,000 as well. So they would have $250,000. So collectively, you've got the crowd at half and the government at half. That's collectively $125 billion invested into local communities, industries all across the United States. But the difference between these grants that the government's giving right now and these loans is you've got the crowd doing the oversight, the crowd as investors. So there's a vested interest in the crowd in terms of making sure that they're active customers and marketing agents to these businesses. If they do so, well, we accomplish several things. The companies get back on their feet, they rehire their employees, they have their customers now that are investors, so they're going to be coming in more often to these businesses. The businesses are going to be making money. We're suggesting that they do this in terms of what's a revenue share note, which means that they would pay a % of the revenue each month back to those investors over a period of time, and the investors would get maybe 1.2x of their investment, which would be a great return over maybe 2 or 3 years. And so that's like the framework for the whole thing, but you make the customers the investors, and the government comes in, and the government's not picking winners at this point. They're just saying, hey, the crowd's really engaged in this business, so we'll come in and we'll co-fund it with you. And it takes out that problem of the government picking winners in this whole scenario.
Well, and it would have a huge impact on Main Street America, wouldn't it?
Oh, it would have an immense impact. So the problem with the current loan programs that the government's doing is they're relying on these big banks to do it. And the big banks are incentivized to do loans for bigger corporations because the fees are greater for the banks. Well, that takes out the incentive for all these Main Street American businesses, by the way, that we need to return back for some sense of normalcy when this whole pandemic's over, or we're all going to be going, where am I getting my pizza? Yes, this is very, very critical for these really small grassroots, bricks and mortar, Main Street type of American businesses.
Now, I heard a statistic on the radio the other day, and I don't know how well researched it was, but the local restaurant association said 25% of Salt Lake restaurants will fail. as a result of the pandemic. And I just thought that's incredible. I mean, it's tough enough running a restaurant all the time, but it just highlights how razor thin the margins are. This would address that perfectly, wouldn't it?
It would address the fact that these restaurants have razor thin margins. It would address the fact that we need the people to come back into the restaurants, because if the government gives its money right now and these businesses get up and running, you have a problem. And that problem that I see, that I'm not quite sure everyone else sees, is you have to get people into the businesses. If they're not shopping, if they're not sitting down and eating at those tables, the restaurants are going to go out of business. Well, what better way to make sure that those people come back to your business than make them investors in your business? Okay, the government programs that they currently have do not engage a community at this community grassroots level the way crowdfunding can and will do. And by the way, the other thing I do want to add to that is, I think you hit the nail on the head. Think about all these restaurants that have furloughed employees, laying off, going out of business. Well, those employees have rents that they pay or mortgages that they pay. If all of those people can't pay their mortgages or pay their rents, we're going to have a bigger crisis on our hands, which is a second collapse of the housing market, which will be much deeper and much greater than anything we've seen before. So it's really imperative that right now, in this time, in this really short window that we have, that we look at all new, all alternatives to what the government's doing and promote ideas like this.
Yeah, I think it's brilliant. Woody, that is a great suggestion. I really appreciate you sharing it with us. Before you go, would you take just a minute and tell us, what is your superpower?
My superpower is the ability to dream up great things and hope that they happen.
Well, you do more than hope that they happen. We'll have to have you back sometime to have you tell us the story of how you got the Jobs Act passed, because I've heard some great stories from you in the past. We ought to relive that moment again soon. Woody, before you go, tell people how they can learn more about your work at Crowdfund Capital Advisors.
Sure. So the easiest thing to do is check out crowdfundcapitaladvisors.com, or you can check out the book Crowdfund Investing for Dummies, which will teach you how to crowdfund from a securities point of view. And then we're always available. We've got blogs that go out there, so you can engage with us on that. And we've got a newsletter that you can subscribe to and get all the latest information from our point of view of what's happening in crowdfunding from a data perspective. We are in tune with all the data that's happening on all the platforms. And we publish annual reports on the state of regulation crowdfunding, and we have a dashboard that lets people see what's happening in the industry.
Fantastic. Woody, again, thank you very much for being with us. We wish you every success in bringing this new idea to life.
Thanks, Devin.
All righty. Let's be bold together. I'm Devin Thorpe. For the last 8 years, I've been working full-time to eradicate extreme poverty, improve global health, and fight climate change. I've concluded that the best way for me to continue my work is to run for Congress to represent the people of Utah's 3rd District. In Utah, we have common shared values. Those things unite us. I believe passionately in our ability to come together, and I believe that working together, we can solve Utah's problems. I'm Devin Thorpe. I'm a Democrat. I'm running to represent the people of Utah's 3rd District. I'm Devin Thorpe, a candidate for Congress, and I approve this message.